The following is a Comfortably Zoned Radio Network production.
We are back, in case you're wondering, with George Case. I'm Ralph Tyko with the Comfortably Zoned Radio Network, and we have a panel of folks today that tremendous. I get to talk to these guys on Sunday and sometimes during the week. It's great. Al Blumkin is here. How you doing, Al?
All right.
Good.
Hi,
David Hubler.
Hello.
How you doing, David? And George Case is here to talk to Ronnie Rabinovitz. How you doing, Ronnie?
Good. I'm great. Thank you.
Good.
How are you, George?
Hey, Ronnie.
How you doing?
Good. I've got a topic that's, we started doing it going around the horn with catchers, and it was one of the best shows we ever did because, as I was saying off the air, the good part is there's no right or wrong to this. It's just personal favorites and greats. So we're going to go first baseman today, and I want to start it off with who do you think is the greatest first baseman of all time? A, and who is your favorite first baseman and why? And I'm going to go around the horn, and I'm going to start with George Case, who he may be wondering. In case.
Well, I'll tell you what. Let me first mention that this is a fun topic for me because I was a first baseman myself. I started playing first base when I was in Little League. Played all through high school, Babe Ruth League, American Legion. I always loved first base, and I think I had a special talent because I was big and I was a good fielder and I was a good hitter. So I was a pretty big guy, and first basemen are usually pretty big. And who
were some of the people that instructed you at first base?
Well, I was just going to bring that up, Ralph. First of all, you mentioned, my all-time favorite as far as the player. I mean, the greatest player, in my opinion, at first base, and that had to be Lou Gehrig for me because Lou is, legendary, and my dad and Lou played against one another, knew one another. My personal favorite first baseman was Mickey Vernon. And Mickey was left-handed. I was right-handed, but I tried to learn a lot of things just watching Mickey and the fact that Mickey was a long-time personal family friend. And I used to talk about playing first base with Mickey many, many times. So they were my two, all-time great Lou Gehrig and my personal favorite, Mickey Vernon.
Beautiful. Alan Blumkin.
Well, I agree with George with Lou Gehrig. And another one that, of course, was way before my time. I thought was terrific, and I think is very underrated. Was Jimmy Fox.
Alan, is there a book about Jimmy Fox?
Yeah, there are a couple of books that.
There are. There's
Which
a book,
one is
Alan, a book I have. Maybe you've read it. It's called Jimmy Fox, the from Sudlersville, Maryland. And Jimmy and my dad were very close friends. Jimmy was a terrific first baseman, but he was also versatile. He played third base.
Yeah, he pitched at the end, too.
He was a terrific player and probably one of the greatest hitters of all time, just a tremendous power hitter. So I agree with you, Alan, on Jimmy Fox. He was terrific.
Okay, as personal favorites, I don't know if because you go from like a Willie Stargell, who basically came up as an outfielder, sort of like Stan Musial, and they made first baseman toward the end of their careers. But as full time, I have a couple. I have Gil Hodges, even though he was a Dodger, who I hated when I was a kid. Overall, in the 1950s. If you don't count Stan Musial, Gil Hodges was probably, by the numbers, the best first baseman throughout that decade. The only other one in his class, and he only had 4 really terrific years before back problems did him in, was Ted Kluszewski.
Yeah, he was a.
I like watching, with the the sleeves cut off and everything. I mean, he was a little bit of a character. Besides that, his years from 53 through 56 were, especially 54 and 55 were tremendous. But then the back problems in 57 really did him in as a power hitter and somebody who could play every day.
Yeah, Kluszewski's arms were bigger than most people's legs.
Yeah, huge. I also, as a kid, a very young kid, liked Johnny Mize because he was a terrific hitter who never struck out. And I liked the Moose Scowen, even though he was spent an awful lot of time on the disabled list. Probably the one, the recent vintage, if you can call it recent vintage, was Keith Hernandez, who I thought was a terrific, probably the best fielding first baseman, along with Gil Hodges I've ever seen.
Whoa. High praise. High praise. Someone on these airwaves mentioned that Gil was kind of overrated a little bit defensively. Now, obviously, Al didn't hear that, doesn't believe that.
I don't believe that, no.
Hear that?
I don't either.
I don't believe it. I don't believe it. And you know what? I'm sure Ronnie's going to jump in here because I've said before.
Absolutely.
My opinion, Joe Hodges is, overlooked all the time for the Hall of Fame. I don't understand it. Anybody who says he was overrated defensively, I don't think they know what they're talking about. He was a great player.
I agree with you. He was a terrific player. I agree with you, George.
Ronnie, how about you? Around the horn we go. And
well,
Ronnie's
Lou Gehrig has to be one of the best ever. Not only his fielding, but his hitting. And my favorite, of course, bar none, is Gil Hodges. Absolutely.
If we have time at the end, we'll go into today's first baseman. But if Ronnie, it's whenever I ask you questions about the Dodgers, rightfully so, you're so prejudiced. If it weren't for Gil Hodges, who would you like? Did you admire any other first baseman?
I did. I did. I think that Keith Hernandez was good, excellent. I thought that there were others. I'm trying to think right now off the top of my head. But Whitey Lockman was no slouch.
Yep.
Defensively, you're absolutely correct. As a Giant fan, I can tell you that.
Yeah.
He wasn't. And Joe Torre's brother, Frank
Torre. Yeah.
He couldn't hit. Adcock could hit. Joe Adcock
was a good.
Frank Torre couldn't hit.
Baseman too. Yeah.
He couldn't hit,
Joe
but
Adcock
platoon a little bit. And one was a left-hander, one was a right-hander. And,
right.
Torre had a few good years in 56, 57.
Yeah.
They were a terrific team, I remind.
They were a great team, yeah.
Anybody listening,
when I was 9 years old and 10 years old, I used to argue that Joe Collins was better than Gil Hodges, even though I knew it was complete nonsense.
Hey, there are people today that argue that Trump is a good president, even though deep down they know that it's complete nonsense.
Let's not get started on that.
I won't.
All right.
Yeah.
I just got to throw in a little levity every now and then.
That's not levity.
I don't see anything funny about it. I really don't.
Really,
no.
It isn't. But it's closing in, and I think it's going to come to an end quickly. The walls seem to be
keeping in mind the presidency and first baseman. Don't forget that George Herbert Walker Bush played first base for Yale.
Yes, he did.
Yeah, and he was supposedly a fairly good ball player.
He was a two-time captain. He was a two-time captain at Yale, David. And there is that photograph I've seen. You've probably seen. A lot of people have seen it of George Bush and Babe Ruth. at Yale.
Yes,
in
right.
1948, just a few months before Babe died.
Right, right.
Uh-huh.
Well, I'll
my
tell you
understanding also was that Bush, now this might be just a story, but that he kept his Yale first baseman's mitt in the Oval Office desk drawer.
Might have been. Went out into the lawn there and had a catch with somebody.
Huh.
Maybe his son.
Yeah.
Well, he was a great baseball fan. I mean, he was a very good player, but he was a great baseball fan. I'm not.
I was at a reception when he was vice president, where they had some foreign little league team come in, and they all came up to see the vice president, and he was really in his glory with these guys because what's his name showed up with him, the great catcher for the Mets. Anyway, but he was a real big baseball fan. Yeah, one of the last of the presidents who really was a baseball fan.
And he had been an owner of the Texas Rangers. Before he got into the political arena, he owned.
That was W.
Well, that was his son. The son was.
Yeah. Well, no. What I'm saying is that the Bush family was very much involved in baseball for many years.
Right.
So, right.
Well, one since you were going around the horn, one of the ones that we've overlooked a bit and no one's mentioned in terms of terrific fielding and hitting, who had back problems, was Don Mattingly.
Yeah.
Mattingly was a really terrific first baseman, and I think his career was cut short because of his backing problem.
Yeah, there was a piece in the Daily News there comparing him to David Wright. Comparing David Wright to him. Because of the back problems.
Well, you compare him to a lot of people.
I know. But
Krasuski, he had back problems.
Yeah.
I did like the mention of Johnny Mize because Mize really fit in with that Yankees team. That he was one of those late season pickups that the Yankees were able to pick up as they headed into the World Series, and he fit in. And Skowron too. Skowron really fit in with that Yankee team. I was sorry when they traded him to the Dodgers. I thought that was
they had to make room for Pepitone.
Yeah, who was great. Yeah. I still have my card from the Joe Pepitone Defense Fund. We all kicked in when he was about to go to jail.
They literally had a defense fund for him.
They did. They really did. And because he'd gotten into some legal problems, but it was a terrible trade. Pepitone never lived up to. In fact, he shouldn't even be mentioned with all of these terrific first basemen.
Yeah,
I don't think he ever.
Another one that's current that because I haven't seen him that much as a fielder, but as a hitter up until last year, he was really terrific. Was Miggy Cabrera.
Melky Cabrera? Yeah.
Miguel Cabrera on the Tigers,
Yeah.
Yeah. Good one. I want to mention a guy with the A's, Matt Long, I think it is, the first baseman with the A's, is unbelievably defensively.
Matt Olson?
Unbelievably a great defensive first baseman. His third baseman, who is so great, Matt Chapman, is a little bit of a scatter arm, and the Matt at first just digs him out. He is terrific. So he's one of the current ones that I.
Ralph, that's one of the attributes of a good first baseman, and I remember when I was a kid, I loved to do it. Is digging out the short hops. I mean, if you've got that talent to be able to do that, because you can save a lot of runners and outs by doing that, because there are a lot of ball players, shortstops, third basemen, so forth. They might be scatter arm and they're going to throw, and you've got to be able to be quick off the bag. And sometimes you got to have a stretch, and sometimes you got to pick up the short hop. But that's a key. Defensive ability that a first baseman must have.
Yeah, there was some.
George, were you a lefty or a righty first baseman?
No, I was right-handed. Now the thing about it is you are at a disadvantage with a right-hander because
that's what I want.
You want to make you want to make the tag, you've got to do it, and you've got to go over your body. Or if you want to make the throw to second base, you've got to do a pivot. Where with a left-hander, it's a natural move. You can snap the tag right on the runner, or you can make that play to second base without moving your feet. You can just, get the ball and throw. So it's a big advantage to be a left-hander at first base, just like it's very few, if ever. Now, there was one first baseman, Dale Long, who actually caught two games, the Chicago Cubs left-handed. He had to use his first baseman's mitt because they don't anybody ever makes a left-handed catcher's mitt because catchers traditionally are right-handed, and first basemen traditionally are left-handed, although there are quite a few right-handed first basemen. But it is an advantage, being a lefty playing first base.
Yeah. If you want to mention Vic Power, and I'm going to have Ronnie speak about him. He played in Minnesota. I thought he was the best fielding first baseman in the American League in his day.
Yeah. And Ken Herbert was no slouch either.
That's true, but I don't think he's thought of in those great defensive first basemen.
Yeah. Steve Garvey was a good first baseman.
Yeah.
Very good.
Another real old-timer that I'd like to mention is George Sisler, who was sensational and he had this incredible year in 1922. Then he missed the whole 23 season with very bad sinus problems that affected him the rest of his career, even though he managed to have very good years, but he was never the same as he was before that happened.
Yeah, right. I mean, Alan, George Sisler's in the Hall of Fame. Terrific first baseman, and had two sons who played Major League Baseball. Dick Sisler played with the Phillies, the hero of the 1950 Whiz Kids, and Dave Sisler, who actually pitched for the expansion Senators when my dad was coaching for Washington. Dave graduated from Princeton. So George Sisler had two very accomplished Major League ball players' sons, and I think he had a third son who was a minor league executive. But I agree with you, George Sisler is overlooked today because people, don't think about back in the 20s, but he was a terrific first baseman.
And let's not forget that he was signed by Branch Rickey.
Yeah.
St. Louis Browns.
Yeah, there was a big dispute because the Pirates thought they had him signed, and it went to the National Commission. This was before Landis, and they voted 2-1 for the Browns. And the National League, one of the owners, owner of the Reds at that point, was on that commission, and Barney Dreyfuss on the Pirates never forgave him for that. He voted for the Browns to get Sisler.
So Branch Rickey he signed.
Yeah, because it went to a dispute. The Pirates thought they had him signed, something with the college eligibility or something or other, and Rickey signed them, and then went to the National Commission. The dispute went to the National Commission, and they awarded them to the Browns.
Whoa. Hey, let's have Branch Rickey as a topic next week.
Okay.
How about that?
At the convention in Pittsburgh, there was a whole panel on him. Basically with his years with the Pirates.
Beautiful. We could talk
and
about
David might be interested in this. David Hubble, because one of the speakers on the panel was a curator at the Library of Congress. They have something like 20,000 pieces of Branch Rickey's correspondence there.
Oh.
Back and forth, scouting reports, all sorts of stuff. And, the guy was very, very interesting. So, when we got to Branch Rickey, anybody who has a, somewhat scholarly interest in him, that stuff is
a true baseball man.
Yeah, I think that would be a great topic next week.
Ronnie, that sounds like a job for Richard Zamoff.
Yeah, right.
And the scholar of the group, or not our group, but of a Jackie Robinson group.
Speaking of Richard Zamoff, by the way, the George Washington University administration is talking about phasing out that project there. Very disturbing.
You know, I sort of got a hint of that because I don't think.
Yeah.
Usually, I go to the Jackie Robinson presentation each April, 14th, the 15th.
I usually go in October.
Yeah. Yes, you do. That's why we never see each other.
Yeah, right.
But I didn't get an invitation this year. They may not have even had it. I don't know.
Yeah, I know. I'm very disturbed about that.
Ron, do you know of a guy named Joseph Dorenson?
Sure, very well.
Yeah.
Very well.
He's one of the locals here. Yeah.
He's a good friend of mine. Matter of fact, he was involved in that Letters from Jackie, the documentary.
Yeah.
Did about that.
He also did a 3-day seminar on him a bunch of years ago, which unfortunately I couldn't make. But
he's a very dear friend. He's been not well though, I know.
No, I didn't know that. I haven't seen him in a long time.
Yeah. Great guy. Yeah.
Nice. Anything anybody wants to say about any first baseman living, dead, or coming up in the minors?
Another one I thought was very good for a number of years was Bill White.
Yeah.
You know, the later went to fame as National League president, last National League president, and the partner and foil of Rizzuto, Phil Rizzuto in the Yankees announcing booth. Another one because Ernie Banks was, basically remembered as a shortstop, but he played the last 10 or 11 years of his career out of first base.
He did.
Yeah.
He didn't get along with Leo DeRocher, as I remember.
Nobody did.
No. Nobody did.
Okay.
That's
but
right.
Leo,
it was sort of a badge of honor if you didn't get along with him.
Yeah.
No, Leo DeRocher didn't get along with Ernie Banks. He dissed him a lot. He must have been a real jerk, DeRocher.
Yeah, I agree.
Well, he was past. He was past. By the time he came to the Cubs, the whole society had changed, and he couldn't run teams like he did with the Dodgers and the Giants. In the 40s and the early 50s.
Hey, if anybody out there is listening, I channeled my Uncle Boris. My Uncle Boris would say, he's a real joke.
A real joke. A real joke. Yeah.
That's how he said it. I don't think I've ever used that expression to describe anybody in my life. So that just came to my head. He's a real joke.
I wanted to mention that's funny, Ralph. It really is with that New York accent. But I just wanted to mention when Alan brought up Ernie Banks, it's such a beautiful day here today in the East. Ernie Banks was famous for his quote, it's a beautiful day, let's play two. And just a terrific person, a great, player. And you're right, Alan. They did move him from shortstop to first base. It happened a lot in baseball. A lot of players.
Not only from the outfield to first base, like Musial and Willie Stargell, when they slowed down and couldn't play. Still terrific hitters, but they couldn't play the outfield anymore.
Yeah, they wanted to keep their bat in the lineup, and that was it. Right. Yep.
And I had the privilege of seeing
DiMaggio playing first and a picture of Mantle playing first.
No, at the end, Mantle played the last couple of years, And I had the privilege of seeing a lot of probably the worst fielding first baseman of all time, Dick Stewart. In fact, I was at
Dr. Strangeglove.
Dr. Strangeglove. I was at the Pirate game when he. He picked up a hot dog wrapper between innings and was given a standing ovation.
Right. Well, if you guys were Met fans, you'd remember Marv Throneberry along the same lines as Dick Stewart.
Yep.
And what's amazing, if those two guys had played in today's game,
they'd be DHs.
They'd be DHs, and they wouldn't have to think about defense like a lot of these guys do, and they would have thrived in today's game.
That's right.
Go figure. And let's not forget Rocky Nelson, who came up with the Dodgers.
He was with everybody before he finally landed with the Pirates in 1959. Yeah.
Quite a bit.
Well, he made that play in the '60 World Series, the play on Berra where Mantle dove back into first base. And when I interviewed Dick Groth in 1985, I asked him, "What do you think would happen? If Nelson made a very good stab at that ball." I said, "What do you think would have happened if Stewart had been playing there?" He said, "Let's not go there."
That's great.
But seeing a fielder like him made you appreciate the ones, like Hodges and Keith Hernandez and others who could really play first base. For years it was a lot of years it was a dumping ground for both outfielders and people who weren't particularly good at their positions defensively to put them at first base because they figured they could do the least damage there. And as people who have been around as long as we have, we know that first base is just a little bit more complicated than a lot of people think.
It sure
Absolutely.
is. Sure.
And can come back thinking like that of just putting your worst defensive guy at first.
Yeah.
Really could come back and haunt you.
Well, I wanted to tell you a quick story about Jimmy Fox that Alan mentioned. Jimmy, Jimmy and my dad were good friends, and Jimmy was the first baseman for many years. He also played third base, but for many years he was first baseman of the Red Sox. Well, when my dad was on first base with a ball, walk or a base hit or something, he always told me, he said, I could always take a little bit longer lead on Jimmy Fox because he just casually, if they made a play on my father at first base, he just casually, swiped at my dad, where a lot of the first basemen will really make a quick snap tag and as the runner's going back in. But my dad always said he could always get a little extra step because he knew that Jimmy, if they're going to throw over, Jimmy was not going to make a real, a wholehearted effort to tag him out. So I just wanted to mention that because my dad and Jimmy, they started playing baseball against one another in 1934. Before my dad was still in high school, and they played in an exhibition game. Jimmy came to Trenton, New Jersey, because he used to love to get his Case's pork roll from my uncle, and he would stock up, and so the Case family and Jimmy Fox were friends for many years.
Wow. Indeed.
I'm sorry to bring up this trivia, but we're talking about
I
just wanted to mention about
kind
Jimmy.
of trivia that this station is built on, and wow, I'm just thrilled, George. Keep it coming week after week, my friend. That's great. Of all the people who instructed you as a first baseman, casually or just things you picked up from players, coaches, friends of your dad, what's the first thing the most important thing that you learned about being a first baseman, and who did you learn it from?
Okay, well, for me, I learned, I guess because I picked up baseball very easily, but I learned, you hold a runner on certain situations. Other situations, you play behind him. It depends on who's coming up. You learn to make the play at second base. Again, I said if you're right-handed, you have to make the pivot because there's no way you can throw across your body where a left-hander can do it. But I used to watch Mickey, and Mickey being a family friend, he would talk to me about, moving at the bag and what you have to do, learning the cutoff. Cutoffs are really important for a first baseman. If you're, the ball's hit the right field and there's a runner on second base and he's going to try and score, and you've got to decide, and are you going to cut the throw off, or are you going to catch it and try to get the runner going to second? So a lot of that is where you're positioned so the right fielder can throw the ball where you can handle it, or when you're listening to the catcher behind you, catcher will say cut or let it go. And then you have to be able to react instinctively to that, whatever the catcher says, because if he says cut it, then what you're going to do is you're going to give up the run, but you might get the runner going to second base. So that's an important skill for a first baseman.
Right, and sometimes they make the tag at second before that run scores too.
Well, you can do that, and also I have a photograph, and it's a really rare, but I know I did it one time myself. Mickey Vernon and Minnie Minoso, there was nobody covering home plate, and Minoso was coming in. Mickey ran from first base to the catcher's spot to get the throw so he can tag Minnie Minoso out at home plate.
Oh,
Wow.
Whoa. Is that something that when Mickey and your dad got together, would they reminisce about plays like that? Do you remember this? Do you remember that?
Yeah, they would, Ralph. They would talk about it. They'd say, hey, do you remember, but they used to laugh most of the time because, sometimes they get in, the players would get in fights and they become good friends, or they were good friends and teammates, but they would argue. But Mickey and my dad used to reminisce a lot about baseball and when they played and who they knew and talk about certain plays. And one thing about baseball, and I guess in any sport, you can recall what happened 50, 60, 70 years ago, the very time that it happened. I mean, I can look back myself and say, hey, I remember when I was playing Little League, 11 years old. I remember a certain play. You just have it in your, and I don't know how your brain works, but it's there where, as you get older, you have a hard time remembering what you did yesterday.
Yeah, there was a book I just finished. It's an oral history of the 1968 World Series. Just came out a couple of weeks ago. I finished it Thursday night, and basically a lot of the players in that book were saying the same thing. They can recall what happened in some ball game. I mean, this is the 50th anniversary of that series. Like what happened in some ball game, and they can't remember what they did 2 days ago. Right. It's the same thing with us. I can tell you ball players from the 50s and 60s, like I know my own name. You ask me about some guys today, and some guys I never even heard of because they're playing for teams that that never get any exposure here.
I agree with you, Alan. I'm mystified myself when I think about it. Why is my brain wired that way? Why do I do that? And on the other hand, I can remember, as an athlete, I think that's what athletes do.
It happens with most people.
Like,
I mean,
if you're a performer or you're an artist or whatever, you're going to remember certain things because that was part of your
exactly.
Your
and
if
you remember a lot of stuff that hits you when you're young because life isn't interfering yet.
That's true. Let me tell you how my mind works. When you mentioned the 68 World Series, I pictured myself where I was in the Air Force, working in supply in a little office. One of my buddies, Dave McKinley, was a St. Louis fan. And Dave McKinley's mother was the postmaster in Alva, Missouri.
That's where the Boyers are from.
The Boyers are from there. And so his mom knew all the 9 Boyer brothers growing up and all that stuff. And it's exactly how my 68 World Series, where I was, who my friends were. I could go back to every year and think of myself in the situation of, which games did I go to? Who did I see when this player? It's just a great common denominator for me, baseball.
Yeah, I saw that picture of you and Alvin Dark that you posted the other day.
I got to meet Alvin Dark, who was and there's a guy for a topic for a show anytime, any day, an enigmatic, complicated human being.
Very much so.
Gene Hutmaker mentioned something. He said that when I posted that picture, that Alvin may be the best of the 3 shortstops, of his time in New York. If Reese and Rizzuto were in the Hall of Fame. Now, Gene thinks a lot of guys should be in the Hall of Fame.
I know that, yeah.
Players. But Alvin was a damn good ball player, and not a Hall of Famer. I don't think a Hall of Famer, but I don't think Reese and Rizzuto were necessarily Hall of Fame players. There should be a spot for damn good ball players. You don't like even if Hodges never makes it, he makes it as a human being. He's in the Hall of Fame for human beings somewhere, if you know what I mean. And Gus Bell, all these guys are just terrific ball players. You mentioned Minnie Minoso, not in the Hall, should be, but that he's not doesn't diminish anything. It's also subjective as to who goes in, who doesn't, who votes, what the old-timers committee. Al, you can probably name 5 guys who are in there as the result of some guy like Frankie Frisch bringing in old crows.
Oh, he brought in a whole bunch of guys that have no business. In fact, in one of the groups I'm in the Hall of Fame, when I first joined it, they put out every fall birthdays every year, and this Hall of Famer's his birthday is today, whatever. So they put up Jesse Haynes. I don't know if you guys remember that name. He was a pitcher in the 20s and the 30s for the Cardinals, basically, who took 18 years to win 210 games. So I put down, when I put up Jesse Haynes' birthday, I said the only way this guy should be in the Hall of Fame is by buying a ticket. And the guy who runs the site, said to me, we don't want any negative stuff like that in here. So, so I stopped.
Yeah.
But there are a bunch of them that are in there that don't belong, who were put in by Frisch especially, and Charlie Gehringer secondarily. But that's a whole other story. Another one I'd like to mention is Hank Greenberg, who lost 4 years to the war, World War II, and 1936 to a broken wrist, played 12 games that season. And his numbers, if he had been able to play out a career, would have been absolutely spectacular. Plus, he was one of the very few players when in 1947 we was finishing up with the Pirates to welcome Jackie Robinson.
Right. Yes, that's true. Yeah.
He sure did.
Hank Greenberg, Alan, you're absolutely right. Ronnie and Ralph and David. Hank Greenberg was terrific. I mean, he was
how did we forget him?
Great. Great player. Tremendous power hitter. Very, very good player. And Hank's son is an executive with CBS Sports, and Hank was overlooked. And matter of fact, I think Hank married a women's tennis star, and so their offspring were very athletic too. So Hank was just a terrific player. My dad and Hank had a very nice relationship. And as a matter of fact, one quick story. In 1938, my dad told me, he said he hit a ball and down, and Hank was hanging around first base to make the catch, and his foot was on the bag, and my dad stepped on his foot and ripped his shoe off. And instead of going after my father, Hank just turned around and said, "I hope you're satisfied, son." And my dad was a hot shot rookie at the time, and he said it really taught him a lesson, because here was the great Hank Greenberg who could have been after him, telling a rookie that that was a rookie play. Don't ever do that kind of thing again.
Wow.
Greenberg factors in probably one of the dumbest managerial moves ever made. And I was trying to remember all the details, but the point was, it was when Greenberg came out of the Army, he went right back to the Tigers, and the manager at the time, it was the very end of the season, and the Tigers were fighting it out for the pennant, and they had runners on second and third, and I can't. His name is right on the tip of my tongue, the manager. But anyway,
Steve O'Neill.
No, it wasn't Steve.
Del Baker.
No. Let me just. And anyway, so he decided he'd walk the next batter intentionally to get to Greenberg. And at the time, the Tigers were losing the game. And he walks the guy, bases are loaded, Greenberg comes up and promptly hits a grand slam home run. Now, I mean, how many times? And that gave the Tigers the pennant. I think it was 45. Now, how many
it was, David?
David,
you're absolutely right. It was 45. It was the last game of the 45.
Yeah, the last game of the season.
Who's the game against? What team?
Right, it
what?
clinched the pennant against the St. Louis Browns.
That's right. That's exactly right.
Luke was still there?
Ninth inning grand slam home run. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Luke Sewell was still the manager? I mean, he was the manager of the Browns.
Luke Sewell. It was Luke Sewell was managing the Browns.
Yeah.
Right.
But his name slips. But actually, I mean, it had to be one of the dumbest. I mean, could you imagine walking a batter in front of Mantle and loading the bases in the deciding game of a season?
Well, Maris got no intentional walk
Incredible.
in 1951.
Yeah. So this was incredible. I mean, and his excuse was that he didn't think Greenberg was really up to par yet because he'd come out of it. But he'd already hit a number of home runs since he came back from the service. He was incredibly stupid as far as I was concerned.
You know, David, I think you covered it in your book because
I did.
That was a very frustrating time for Washington because they finished the season a week early because Griffith had leased the stadium to the Redskins.
Yeah.
And my dad told me, he said, you know, George, we were sitting in the clubhouse. This was way before television. We have to listen to the radio whether or not we're going to pack our bags, go to Detroit, or pack our bags and go home. And that's, you know, how frustrating it was because if the Tigers had lost that doubleheader to the Browns, it was going to force a one-game playoff in Detroit, and that's where the Senators were going to have to go to see who was going to be the American League champions. As it turned out, Greenberg's home run, you know, just clinched the deal, and that was it.
Yeah, it's one of the season-ending World Series type hits that's totally overlooked these days. I mean, you know, but it was just I remember. I forget who I'd spoken to one of the senators, Nats, at the time, and he said, "Yeah, we were sitting there. We had our bags packed and everything. Right. We're ready. We didn't know whether we were going to go to Detroit
That's it.
or yeah." Yeah,
the way it was. You know, if Greenberg, if the Tigers had lost, then Washington was going to go to Detroit. As it turned out, the players, you know, said goodbye and went their merry way back to their homes. So it was, you know, my dad talked about that many times. One of the first stories I remember hearing as a youngster was you know, hearing my dad talk about Greenberg's home run, you know, that gave the Tigers the pennant.
And there's a picture of Greenberg with a bunch of the other all-stars at the time, and Gehrig is one of them. And the point to me of the picture was that he was the biggest one of them all there.
Yeah.
You know?
That was
he was from the Bronx.
Right, David. I think that was a picture of the 37 All-Star game at
maybe.
Stadium.
And
he was from the Bronx. He went to the
end.
Yeah, I know.
My mother went to the same high school that he did.
Yeah,
she was 5 years behind him.
Yeah, James Monroe High School.
And they asked,
but the point was that here was Gehrig was in the photo. And I think Jimmy Fox was in the photo.
Jimmy Fox, Cronin, DiMaggio. Dixon,
yeah, Cronin, DiMaggio. That's right. You're right, George. Yep. And he was taller than all of them.
Oh, yeah. Hank was a big guy. He was about 6'4", about maybe 215, 220. He was just big. And, you know, a lot of the players, if you look at that photograph, you know, a lot of those players were big guys themselves, but they were maybe 5'11", 6 foot. You know, where Greenberg really towered over him. You know, he was another 4 inches taller than I think Fox, who was standing right next to him.
And Greenberg would not have traded Rocky Colavito had he lived.
No, he was still alive when that. They brought in Frank Lane as a general manager in 1958. And there was a book that came out a couple of years on on Frank Lane. And one of the things they said is that he couldn't stand any player that got more publicity than he did. So that's why he traded Colavito for Harvey Keene, and then later that year they traded managers. Cleveland traded managers with Detroit.
Yeah,
probably worth mentioning.
His nickname, I think, was Trader Frank, I think, wasn't it?
Yeah. When he died, there was only a couple of baseball people that showed up.
Yeah, it's probably worth mentioning that Greenberg was also very well known for his determination not to play on the Jewish high holy days, which we're in the midst of right now.
Well,
that cost
brings us to Tuesday, where Hal Bach is going to celebrate or observe those
Yom Kippur,
and we won't be meeting Tuesday for our Hal Bach at Nedick show.
Yeah, it's Yom Kippur,
Put that in.
Yeah.
And
I believe Sandy Koufax was the same, didn't he?
Yes, he was.
That's right.
You know, he would not pitch. Right.
No. He was in Minnesota, and every synagogue in Minneapolis and St. Paul said that he was at their services. He wasn't at anybody's services. He stayed in his hotel room.
One of the years the Tigers won a pennant.
He was in our congregation. He showed up in our. Everybody said it wasn't true. He never left the hotel room.
There you go.
The Greenberg is either 1934 or 1935. The Tiger infield that played every game, and Greenberg, all four players, and Greenberg missed the last one of the games right at the end of the season because of Yom Kippur.
Yeah.
So the other three played in 154, and Greenberg played in 153.
Yeah, you guys, you just reminded me of a question I'm meaning to ask you guys. It's totally off the subject. Tigers who play every game. Trammell's in the Hall of Fame and Whitaker isn't.
That's criminal.
Whitaker be one of those people that we should
That's
be
criminal, That Whitaker isn't in there,
Who are these people that vote in the Hall of Fame? I mean,
it's the Veterans Committee. The Veterans Committee at this point. Yeah, it becomes, when it gets to the Veterans Committee, it becomes very political.
Very political, Terrible.
All right, guys, we covered a lot today. This was fun. Thank you, gentlemen. If anybody has anything to say it now real quick. Anything you've been meaning to get out?
I want to wish everybody who celebrates a happy and healthy Yom Kippur.
Yeah,
beautiful.
Me too.
I echo that, and I want to wish the people that don't celebrate a happy day as well.
Yeah.
That's right. That's right.
Okay.
All right.
That's right. Absolutely.
Okay.
Lashana Tova.
Lashana Tova. And get that matzah real quick. You got to remind this is the day.
Or good yontif. Just plain good yontif. Good yontif.
Right.
Yeah.
Be well, gentlemen.
Okay.
Bye-bye.
Thanks.
We'll talk
Bye-bye, everybody.
And,
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you all. Bye. This has been a Comfortably Zoned Radio Network production.